I've spent 30 years building walls designed to keep the world out. Strong, solid, secure. But I'm going to tell you something most builders won't admit. When the lights finally go out and the signals die, those thick walls don't protect you. They just box you in. We're obsessed with bunkers and supplies, but we're ignoring a fatal leak in the foundation. 2026 isn't coming for your house. It's coming for your mind. And right now, most of us are sitting in a fortress that's already hollow on the inside. I've spent half my life fighting against a force most people never even think about. In physics, they call it entropy. In my world, we just call it the rot. You see, the universe hates a finished building. The second I drive the last nail into a roof, the sun starts trying to bake it. The rain tries to soak it, and the wind tries to rip it off. A house is a constant battle against falling apart. If I stop maintaining it, the house doesn't just stay the same, it decays. It returns to the dust. And right now, folks, our entire society is losing that battle. We've been told that we're moving forward, that we're more advanced than ever. But as a builder, I look at the blueprint of our world, and I see a structure that is way too heavy for its foundation. There's a law in history that nobody likes to talk about. A researcher named Joseph Tainter mapped it out. He found that when a society gets too complex, when it has too many layers of management, too many debts, and too many fragile systems, it eventually hits a wall. It's like trying to build a tower to the moon using only wooden 2x4s. At first, it's easy. You go up 10 feet, 20 feet. But then you realize the wood at the bottom is starting to splinter under the weight. So you add more wood to reinforce the base. But that makes the whole thing even heavier. Eventually, you're spending every cent you earn just to buy more lumber to keep the bottom from crushing itself. You aren't going higher anymore. You're just trying to keep the whole thing from coming down on your head. That's what 2026 represents. It's the point where the cost of keeping our modern life running becomes higher than the value it gives us. Think about it. Look at your bills. Look at the price of a gallon of gas or a simple sheet of plywood. We are working harder and harder, but we're standing still. We are reinforcing a base that is already crumbling. Most people think a collapse looks like a big explosion. Bam! Done. But that's not it. It's a quiet, cold process. It's entropy. It's the moment the grocery truck doesn't show up because the fuel's too expensive, or the GPS system glitches, and there's no one left who knows how to fix it. It's the moment the system just gets too tired to keep going. It's the lights flickering and then just staying off. And that brings us to the part that really scares me. It's what sociologists call anomie. I call it the loss of the North Star. When the systems we trust finally snap, when the internet goes dark for 3 days, or the bank says, not today, people don't just get angry, they get lost. I've seen it on job sites when a company goes bankrupt overnight. Big, tough men just stand there with their hands hanging at their sides. They don't know who to listen to. They don't know what's right or wrong anymore. Their world was built on a paycheck and a cell phone signal. And without them, they don't know who they are. That anomie is like a thick, heavy fog that settles over a neighborhood. You look at your neighbor, someone you've shared a fence with for 10 years, and suddenly you don't see a friend. You see a threat to your last can of beans. The rules are gone. The glue that holds us together, the belief that everything will be fine tomorrow, just evaporates. You feel it in your gut, a cold, hollow emptiness that saps your strength. I've walked through unfinished houses at dusk, when the wind is whistling through the open studs. It's a lonely, hollow sound. That's what our cities are going to sound like when the entropy wins. It's not about a bad guy or a war. It's about a system that got too big for its own good, and a people who forgot how to stand on their own 2 feet. We've built our lives on a house of cards, and the wind is starting to pick up. 2026 isn't a date on a calendar. It's a deadline. It's the moment the weight becomes too much for the splinters at the bottom. And if you're still counting on the system to hold you up, you're going to be the first one buried under the rubble. But here's the thing about being a builder. When the old structure is rotten, you don't try to patch the drywall. You go back to the foundation. You look at the things that don't need electricity or a high-speed connection to work. You look at the things that have stood for thousands of years. Because when the complexity fails, only the simple things survive. And that's what we need to talk about next. Because if you want to protect your family from the enemy, From that soul-crushing loss of direction, you can't do it with a smartphone or a credit card. You need something that can't be unplugged. I've spent my life around loud machinery. When a jackhammer is going or a cement high-end mixer is roaring right in your ear, you can't think. You can't hear your own breath. You just react. You go numb. But the noise I'm worried about for 2026 isn't coming from a construction site. It's coming from people. When a crisis hits, real crisis, the kind that shuts down the grocery stores and turns the streetlights off, something happens to the air. It gets heavy, not with smoke, but with fear. Scientists and sociologists have a fancy name for it. They call it cognitive pollution, but you can just think of it as a virus of the mind. When everyone around you is panicking, when your neighbors are screaming and the news is shouting about the end of the world, that fear enters you through your eyes and ears. It's like static on a radio. It gets so loud that you can't hear your own soul anymore. You stop being a man, a father, a protector. You just become another part of the panicked herd. And that is where the real danger lies. Because a man who can't think is a man who can't survive. I want to talk to you about something I used to misunderstand. I used to think a prayer room or a closet was just for old ladies or people who were too weak to face the world. I thought it was a place to go and beg for a miracle, but I was wrong. As a builder, I realized that every high-tech facility, every laboratory that handles sensitive equipment, has what they call a clean room. It's a place where the air is filtered, where no dust can get in, because even one speck of dirt can ruin the whole machine. In 2026, your home needs a clean room for your mind. You see, when the grid goes down and the internet dies, the noise doesn't stop. It actually gets louder. It's the sound of the silence outside. It's the look of absolute terror in your wife's eyes. It's the questions from your kids that you don't have the answers to. If you don't have a place to escape that, your operating system is going to crash. You will snap. This is what I call cognitive sovereignty. It's a big term, but it just means the right to own your own thoughts. It means being the captain of your own ship when the sea is trying to swallow you whole. To get that back, you need a quiet zone, a physical place in your house, even if it's just a small closet under the stairs or a corner of the basement, where the world is not allowed to enter. I want you to think of it as a Faraday cage for your mind. If you don't know what a Faraday cage is, it's a metal shield that blocks out all electromagnetic signals. Radios won't work inside it. Cell phones go dead. In 2026, you need a spiritual Faraday cage. When you go into that room and shut the door, you aren't just hiding. You are performing a hard reset. You are shutting out the frequency of the panic on the street. You are blocking the signals of despair that are trying to tell you it's over. In that silence, you find the only frequency that matters, the truth. I've stood in rooms like that. When you first walk in, the silence is deafening. Your heart is racing. Your brain is still screaming about the bills, the gas lines, the chaos. But after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the static starts to clear. You start to hear your own heartbeat. You start to remember who you are. You remember that you are a provider. You remember that you are a rock. That is the power of the quiet zone. It isn't about asking for a lottery win or a magic shield to drop from the sky. It's about reclaiming your mind. In 2026, the people who survive won't just be the ones with the most canned food. They will be the ones who didn't let the red fog of hopelessness take over their brains. They will be the ones who could walk into a small closet, get on their knees, and come out 10 minutes later with a clear plan and a steady hand. If you don't have that place, if you are always connected to the panic, you will be swept away. Your neighbors will look at you and see the same dead eyes they see in the mirror. But if you have that Vung Lang, that quiet zone, you become a lighthouse. When the world goes dark and the cognitive pollution turns everyone into animals, you will be the one standing tall. Not because you're stronger, but because you knew how to unplug. You knew how to protect the most important part of your house, the space between your ears. Don't wait until the screaming starts to find your closet. Clear it out now. Make it a place of order. Because when the enemy hits, that little room will be the only place on earth where the rules still apply. It will be the only radio station still broadcasting the truth in a world full of static. In the silence of that quiet zone, you're going to realize something that might chill you to the bone. You're going to realize how much of your life was built on ghosts. Think about everything you own right now. Your money is just numbers on a screen. Your family photos are in a cloud somewhere. Your maps, your books, even your memories are trapped behind a piece of glass in your pocket. In my line of work, we call that a soft foundation. It looks good during the inspection, but the moment the ground shifts, the whole house slides. And in 2026, the ground isn't just shifting, it's disappearing. When the power grid dies and the internet goes black, most people are going to fall into a state I call information weightlessness. It's a terrifying psychological trap. Imagine being an astronaut whose tether snaps during a spacewalk. There's no up, no down, nothing to grab onto. You just drift into the dark. That's what happens to the human brain when the digital world vanishes. Your mind tries to reach for the system to tell it what to do, but the system isn't there. That's when the panic sets in. That's when the red fog of hopelessness starts to seep through your skull. But as a builder, I know there is a way to stop the drift. You need physical anchors. You need things you can touch, smell, and hold that don't require a single watt of electricity to work. I want you to look at that paper Bible sitting on your wooden table. I'm not just talking about religion here. I'm talking about cognitive offloading. It's a fancy term for a very simple survival trick. Your brain is like a truck bed. It can only carry so much weight before the tires pop and the axle snaps. When the world is falling apart, your mind is overloaded with fear, questions, and what-ifs. You can't think because the truck is overfilled. When you open that physical book and put your hand on the page, you are literally offloading the weight of the world onto the table. There is something deep in our DNA that responds to the feel of paper and the smell of ink. It's a sensory signal that tells your nervous system, this is real, this is solid, this is here. It's a biological reset button for your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that makes decisions. In the middle of the 2026 storm, when everyone else is drifting in that weightless panic, that book becomes your locus of control. It's the one place where the rules haven't changed. It gives your brain a physical floor to stand on so you can stop reacting like an animal and start leading like a man. Then I want you to look at that bottle of olive oil in your kitchen. Most people think zucking the door frames with oil is just some old-fashioned ritual. But think about it like a builder. When I want to protect a foundation from water damage, I don't just hope it stays dry. I apply a primer, I apply a sealant, I create a physical boundary that says, the rot stops here. That oil is your neurological sealant. When you take that oil and you physically touch the wood of your door frames, you are performing a sensory anchor. You are marking a boundary not just for the spirits, but for your own subconscious. You are telling your brain and the brains of your wife and your children that this house is a different territory. Inside these walls, the red fog has no legal right to enter. It's a biological placebo that actually works. By engaging your sense of touch and smell, you are bypassing the panic centers of your brain and speaking directly to your survival instincts. You are waterproofing your soul. When you smell that oil on the wood, your brain remembers the prayer. It remembers the promise. It stops looking at the chaos outside and starts focusing on the peace inside. This isn't just sung jiao or being a good churchgoer. This is advanced spiritual technology. This is using the mat man kwa su hu hin, the code of the tangible, to stay sane in a world that has gone mad. We've been fooled into thinking that higher technology means more screens and more data. But in 2026, the highest technology will be a piece of wood, a page of paper, and a drop of oil. These are the tools that can't be hacked. These are the tools that don't need a signal from Dallas or a satellite in space. Your phone is a brick. Your TV is a black mirror that only reflects your own fear. But that book, that oil, those are neo-thuktai, reality anchors. They keep you tethered to the earth when the digital ghosts try to pull you into the abyss. Don't wait until the signals die to reach for these anchors. Put them in place tonight. Let your hands get used to the feel of the paper. Let your family see you marking the doors. Because when the information weightlessness hits, the only people who won't be drifting are the ones who are anchored to the physical truth. You aren't just preparing a house. You are building a Pao Jai Noi Tai, an inner fortress that the entropy of this world cannot touch. Because once you master the space between your ears, using the tools in your hands, you become something the storm can't break. You become the builder of your own survival. I've seen men spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building what they call survival bunkers. They show me these thick steel doors, the air filtration systems, and the pallets of canned peaches stacked to the ceiling. They think they can wait out the storm in a concrete hole while the rest of the world burns. But as a builder, I look at those men and I don't see survivors. I see people building their own tombs. You see, there's a myth we've been sold, the myth of the lone wolf. We think that if we just have enough ammo and enough food, we don't need anyone else. But history tells a very different story. When the lights go out in 2026 and that heavy silence settles over your town, the man who is alone is the man who is most at risk. I want to talk to you about the ultimate currency. It's not gold, and it definitely isn't the numbers in your bank account. It's what sociologists call social capital. To you and me, it's just called trust. Think about it like this. If you are the only house on the block with a light in the window and a generator running, you aren't safe. You're a target. You're an island in a sea of desperate, starving people. No matter how many locks you put on your door, you can't sleep with both eyes closed forever. The red fog of hopelessness, that spirit of fear we talked about, it feeds on isolation. It loves a man who thinks he can do it all by himself. Because once you're alone, your mind is easy to break. But when you have a nut that neem tin, a knot of trust, with the people around you, that fog can't find a way in. I'm not saying you shouldn't prepare your own house. You must. You need to be the priest of your family, the one who marks the door frames and leads the prayer in the quiet zone. But a priest doesn't just serve himself. A real leader builds a bridge. I want you to imagine two different futures for November 2026. In the first one, you're in your bunker. You're shivering in the dark, clutching a shotgun, listening to every footstep on the gravel outside. You're terrified of your neighbor because you don't know if he's come to ask for help or to take what's yours. That's not survival. That's a living nightmare. Now look at the second future. The power is still out. The grocery stores are still empty. But you aren't alone. You're standing on your porch and your neighbor from 2 doors down is there. You've shared a match. You've shared a word of encouragement from that paper Bible. You know that if someone tries to hurt your family, there are 5 other fathers on the street who will stand with you. And they know you'll do the same for them. That is social capital. That is the only shield that doesn't rust. In the vision I saw, the families who stood like rocks weren't the ones with the most expensive gear. They were the ones who knew how to land Toa, how to spread that light. They were the men who took the time now, while things are still quiet, to wave at their neighbors, to help a guy fix his fence, to let people know that there is a man of God living in this house who can be trusted when the world goes crazy. We are entering a time where selfish survival is a death sentence. 2026 is going to demand that we return to being a Bay John, a community that looks out for its own. If you're busy hoarding every scrap for yourself, you're already losing your non-teen, your humanity. And once that's gone, what are you even trying to save? I am calling on the fathers and the husbands listening to this. Stand up. Don't just be a hoarder, be a lighthouse. Be the one who knows how to pray, but also be the one who knows how to lead a neighborhood. When the trucks stop running and the internet goes black, your social capital will be the only radio station that works. It will be the only supply line that doesn't get cut. Because when people are starving for hope, they will follow the man who has a steady hand and a clear soul. Don't wait until New Year's Eve 2026 to start talking to your neighbors. Start tonight. Be the priest of your home, but be a pillar for your community. Build your house on the rock of faith, but build your neighborhood on the rock of trust. My name is Elias. I've handed you the blueprint. I've shown you that the red fog can't cross a door marked with oil, and it can't break a community that stands together. The rest is in your hands. Cover your wife, cover your kids, and then reach out and cover your neighbor. Wake up before the crash. I am preparing my house. I hope you are preparing yours.